All right. Good afternoon, everybody online too. All right. Okay, let's see this. And so what we'll do is we'll begin with Green Revolution. We'll start talking on that. And I'll mainly use your notes here. Few things I'll make you write, but that can come uh, a little later. Hitesh, this thing is reaching me right now. Oh no, maybe you were in the yesterday's group. Okay, let's see. So, if you could just take up your notes, but before that, एक story समझ लेते हैं. Let's understand the story of what was happening in India before Green Revolution. All right, and what was the idea of Green Revolution? What happened in India pre-Green Revolution? Let's try understanding that. So I've already told you that the Indian agriculture that we had inherited was a backward system, and we didn't even grow well. We were not even food sufficient. So all that story you know. Now, what was happening apart from that, or what happened apart from that, was that pricing of agricultural goods was something that always remained a problem factor. How to price them? Sometimes the price will, like in the Second World War period, the deliberate idea was to keep prices in control. That was the deliberate idea during Second World War. Then after Second World War, the government said, all right, we will not keep the price in control. We would rather free it up. So from 1951 to 1953, there was a free price system. But as soon as we created a free price system in agriculture, there was a lot of black marketing that we saw. 1953, 1954, a lot of black marketing. And all these years were years of heavy agricultural shortage. You know, all of these years, they were years of heavy agricultural shortage. The food grains were missing. Even cash crops were not much in volume. So there were not days in which we had a surplus kind of a thing. This was 1954-55. We got a big shock in 1957-58. और इस बीच में सरकार ने एक और काम किया. Government did one more thing in between. What the government did was they created rice zones and wheat zones in India. So there were 8 wheat zones in northern India, and the entire southern India was declared as a rice zone. There were 8 wheat zones in northern India, and the entire southern India was declared as a rice zone. And the rule was made that if you are shifting agricultural commodities from one zone to another, you will have to take permission from the government. If you are shifting agricultural commodity from one zone to another, you will have to take permission from the government. Otherwise, you are not allowed to shift agricultural commodities from one zone to another. All right, so this was something that was done in 1954-55. But we got a shocker, and it was a bad shock we got, in 1957-58. We had a very bad agricultural crisis. Huge, severe drought, and that implied, or the drought resulted in balance of payment crisis. You have heard that story when I was teaching you India, economic growth theory and all. Balance of payment crisis. This was 1957-58, and the government realized that until India does not become sufficient in food and does not become productive in agriculture, remedies cannot be found. And this was the beginning point when the government invited a team from Ford Foundation, and they said, you do the research and tell us what needs to be done in India to make agriculture more productive. So the Ford Foundation team came to India in 1958. They submitted their report in April 1959. And the team said that what India needs to do is use better quality seeds, more assured irrigation, because irrigation was missing in India. In fact, 85% of total area in India, gross cropped area, was dependent on monsoon. So government said you need better irrigation facilities. The Ford Foundation team said, they said you need better facilities on seeds procurement, and they said you need better marketing facilities, training to your farmers, and if you do all that, use modern equipments, then agricultural productivity can be developed. So in 1961, government started IADP, All right, that was one program that they started. Now, this was Intensive Agricultural Development Program, all right, IADP, in 1961. Now, this developed, 1964 the government brought in IAAP, Intensive Agricultural Area Program. तो इसीलिए कुछ लोग जो मिसेस गांधी के खिलाफ रहते हैं, ड्यू टू ऑब्वियस रीजंस, बिकॉज हर चिल्ड्रन आर स्टिल people who are quite in power in India, or grandchildren for that matter. So some people have an issue with Mrs. Gandhi because of that. तो वो लोग कहते हैं that Green Revolution was brought in by, कहते हैं मतलब पढ़ाते हैं या बताते हैं, was brought in by Shastri ji and not Mrs. Gandhi. Now, Shastri ji introduced IAAP, in which modern method of cultivation was propagated over 114 districts of India. That is something that Shastri ji introduced in India, no doubt. But that was not Green Revolution, because this modern method of cultivation did not have high yielding variety of seeds. It had modern methods, better tractors to be used, more fertilizers to be used, irrigation to be improved. But the key thing in Green Revolution that actually turned it around was high yielding variety of seeds, which was missing in these days. So high yielding variety of seeds nahi the isme. Now 1966, of course, we were again having two very severe droughts in 1964 and 1965. We were having two very severe droughts in 1964 and 1965. So government became more conscious that something has to be done so that India's hunger problem can be solved. Also remember, this is not economics, but this is something you should know according to me. By mid-1960s, things were becoming clearer as to whose side we will have to take in the Cold War. All right, Americans were kind of openly coming in favor of Pakistan. That was seen in 65. In fact, it was a bad change after Kennedy. In 1962, when Kennedy was the president of America, and when Chinese had attacked us, Americans had offered an open support. They had said that if you want, we can be there to support you. In fact, in UN, Americans were taking our story. तो हमारे तरफ से अमेरिका वोट करते थे, प्रस्ताव लाते थे. So Americans would bring resolutions, vote for us. 1962, Kennedy was the president. Chinese had attacked us. Now Kennedy unfortunately dies, and then they have a change in power. Republicans come back to power also very soon, because within 2 years, 1 year they had an election, and Nixon became the president after that. And now Americans were taking a stand which was quite favorable towards Pakistan. So we now knew, and why is that important in our current discussion? Because a major source of our food used to be America. For example, when Americans invaded Vietnam and India vociferously, opposed it, then that year, this was 1967, 66, 67, that year, suddenly Americans delayed the shipment of wheat to India. उन्होंने कहा हमें logistical issues आ रहे हैं, हमारे पास enough ships नहीं है. So we don't have enough ships to send you wheat. And they didn't say we will not send you wheat. They said it's getting delayed. And they deliberately delayed it for a couple of months. So that was their technique of punishing us. That, okay, you vote against us at United Nations, we can do this to you now. So that is what was happening. So that meant that if we wanted an independent policy, then we badly needed a situation where at least we get independent on food production. Because you can't have an independent system if you're dependent for food on somebody else. Now India, as usual, what the India that you see today, if you read Indian economic history or political history or social history, I've been an avid student, believe me. I would have read close to 100 books on these. I've been a very avid student of India after 1951. जितनी किताबें मिली मैं ढूंढ के पढ़ता रहता था उनको कि जानूं कि होता क्या था इन टाइम पीरियड में. तो वही आपसे शेयर कर रहा हूँ. So if you read through this place, one thing you will see consistent in us. That consistency is that we differ vociferously on every issue. आप कोई भी issue इंडिया में रखिए और उसको बोलिए कौन agree करते हैं नहीं करते हैं. कोई भी issue, it can be except for maybe India winning a cricket test match, kind of, But people would differ vociferously on that. Oh, this should not be done. This should be done. So high yielding variety of seeds were nothing new. High yielding variety of seeds were the same story. That government introduced this idea. Mrs. Gandhi was a big supporter of it. She wanted this. Professor M.S. Swaminathan was the one who was introducing it in India. And Dr. Norman Borlaug from Mexico was the one who had invented these seeds. They were also called dwarf quality of wheat. So the plant won't grow tall, the plant will grow short, but the plant will grow horizontally. And therefore, and the plant will have more dense amount of grains in it. तो जो फसल है आपकी वो लंबी नहीं जाएगी, ऐसे मूव करेगी, और जो आपके गेहूं के जो दाने हैं वो ज्यादा होंगे इस फसल में compared to जो पहले के हम क्वालिटी करते थे. That was the only difference, that the plant will not grow tall, will grow short and will grow horizontal, and the amount of grains you will have in the new quality of seeds will be much more in the plant compared to the older one. So the productivity rose. Again, there was huge opposition. In fact, it was almost bifurcated in the parliament. 30-40% people were openly opposing it. It was mainly Mrs. Gandhi's heft. अब आप में से जो भी लोग मुझसे नाराज हुए थे जब मैं मिसेस गांधी की बुराई कर रहा था 1970s पढ़ाते हुए, सारा गिला शिकवा माफ हो जाएगा यहाँ. But anyways, it was mainly Mrs. Gandhi's heft which carried it through, that she took a lot of responsibility because she believed in it. She thought that this is something that can get us free of hunger. So finally we started with the Kharif crop of 1966, when we said that let's go for high yielding variety of seeds, let's try developing it. And there were 4 components to it: high yielding variety of seeds, chemical fertilizers, so high yielding variety of seeds, chemical fertilizer, assured irrigation, and chemical pesticides. These were the 4 major components that were introduced. India was not using a lot of chemical fertilizers in those days. India was not using a lot of chemical pesticides in those days. Understand it like that. India was also not using or not having a lot of assured irrigation. One reason, there were several, but one reason we chose Punjab and Haryana to introduce this was that they had a nice canal system of irrigation where we were assured that water supply will be there. That was one reason. There were other reasons, like the land system was less fragmented. Don't forget, Punjab and Haryana had a Mahalwari system before independence, and in Mahalwari system the fragmentation of land was less compared to a Zamindari or a Rayatwari system. So the land was less fragmented in Punjab and Haryana. Another reason why Punjab and Haryana was chosen because farmers were more willing to experiment. In many other places like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, the farmers were not immediately willing to experiment. Punjab and Haryana, the farmers were willing that, okay, bring the new seed and we are willing to work on that. So there were various reasons. Plus remember, it was mainly coming in wheat, and Punjab, Haryana, etc. were already wheat growing and wheat eating areas. Remember, India doesn't eat wheat. If you are from North India, you may not appreciate that immediately, but India is not a wheat eating country. We are a heavy rice eating country. Whether you talk Eastern India, Southern India, you see the festivals that happen, and you will see that most of the dishes that you will see in those festivals are rice-based dishes. And that is because of the cultural and ethical and ethos that we have developed, that we have been a rice-eating country. Of course, Green Revolution gradually did spread to rice, but initiated in wheat. So there were reasons why Punjab and Haryana were chosen initially for development of these. But these 4 were the major ingredients that were needed for growing the higher crop. Now 1966 it was introduced. India's total food grain production in 1966 was approximately 58 million tons. And by 1971, this was 102 million tons. And mainly backed by very high growth in wheat as well as rice. Mainly backed by very high growth in wheat as well as rice. And that is why it was called Green Revolution. Revolution because of very high level of change in a very small period of time. That is why the name Revolution. बहुत ज़्यादा बदलाव आया, बहुत इसमें एक ये इकोनॉमिक्स नहीं है, बट मैं आपको सुनाने से रोक नहीं पा रहा हूँ खुद को, तो आपको सुना देता हूँ ये कहानी क्विकली। एक बड़ा जबरदस्त बात हुई 1969। by 1969 we were touching around 90 million tons, which was more than what we needed for our food security. So we touched 90 million tons 1969. It was more than our food security. We felt pretty happy about it. And Mrs. Gandhi, being Mrs. Gandhi, she now openly criticized the Americans. She said that Vietnam is a big mistake and these guys are horribly running the system. The world is being divided. She said everything and she was very critical, immensely. And for next 6-7 months, all her statements would be criticizing Americans. And people were saying that, look, now since they have become self-dependent in food, they are speaking like this. And that was true. Now, as luck will have it, 1970 became a drought year in India, and this came down to 71 million tons. You know, and we had to import 10 million tons of food again from Americans. So sometimes, maybe we spoke before our turn. In fact, that is why you would recall that 71 was the time when Mrs. Gandhi had gone to US. And she was not seeing eye to eye with Nixon. But we wanted this food. Nixon was pretty, if you read Henry Kissinger's book, it is called World Order. In that he writes that Nixon would call her the old witch. That is the name Nixon had kept for us, that I don't want to see the old witch, she nags me a lot and don't want to go through her, and so on. So he would call her the old witch very often. But that was because Mrs. Gandhi was a very strong personality and she would not take it down, if he would tell her do this, and she would not do that. And then, of course, we got wheat from them in 1970, but thankfully post-1971 the situation never arose. This was a one-off event. We were just kind of settling down, and so it happened. But ये एक झटका था हमें एक साल के लिए. But again from 1971 it touched this, and we never looked back after that. So we never had a food insecurity post 1971. In fact, many people say that India would not have gone for a Bangladesh liberation war if we were not food secure. So Green Revolution was playing its own role in that. So that is why the name Green Revolution. Again, I repeat, green because it was about crops, wheat and rice, so green in color, and revolution because the changes happened in a very short span of time and at a very huge rate. That is why the name was Green Revolution. Now, and most of these I have given it to you in your booklet. If you would see it across in the section on Green Revolution. The story about BOP crisis and IAAP and IADP and so on, I have given you all these stories in that. And I have also given you the 5 reasons for government introducing a green revolution in India. I will be coming to that in a while. But first I need you to write one thing which is not in it, that is reasons for choosing northwestern India for green revolution. Alright, that why did you choose Punjab and Haryana and not other places in India for green revolution? So you just give a subheading in that, reasons for choosing northwestern India. We call it northwestern India, but they were precisely Punjab, Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh. Alright, the western Uttar Pradesh region actually meant region spanning between Meerut and Shamli, Saharanpur kind of areas. Alright, so this was the western Uttar Pradesh region that was being covered. So Punjab, Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh, that also a limited region between Meerut and Shamli. That was the region that they were mainly covering across. Alright, now you write 1. Land holdings were less fragmented. Land holdings were less fragmented and therefore more suitable for more suitable for introducing modern equipments and new technology then you write second, irrigation system, second point, irrigation system was established, irrigation system was established much better and canal irrigation, canal, C-A-N-A-L, canal irrigation assured continuous water supply which made it suitable for not only cropping but also solubility of fertilizers and pesticides. So that was another reason that you needed a lot of water so that the fertilizers we were using, pesticides we were using don't harm the soil, they get soluble in it and can be activated better. And then you write third, these regions were already practicing some basic mechanization which was not observed anywhere else in India except Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. So the amount of mechanization they were practicing, Punjab and Haryana, mechanization means using a tractor to cultivate or using a thresher to harvest. All right. So of course, don't compare it to today and don't compare it to a modern system, but compared to what we were doing in 50s, by 60s, Punjab and Haryana had grown comparatively better, but other states had not done as much. Tamil Nadu was doing well, Maharashtra was doing well, but we didn't see it happening in other states. Mind you, there were various reasons also, like in places like Bihar, the land holdings were very fragmented, and therefore it was not possible to go for high mechanization. In places like Kerala, the agriculture was very well developed. In fact, the practices were very well ordained already, but then Kerala was mainly again a rice growing state where subsistence farming would remain more prevalent, and again it didn't mean there was a lot of need of high scale production and mechanization. Punjab and Haryana were in a unique situation. Again I repeat, Punjab and Haryana are not states with very high rainfall. You go back to your 7th, 8th standard NCERT geography and they will tell you that Punjab and Haryana have an average rainfall of 65 centimeter to 80 centimeter, depending on which region you are talking about. Again, they don't have Khadar kind of alluvial soil. They have Bangar kind of alluvial soil. That means again that it is relatively less fertile than than the Khadar alluvial soil, which you find in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, etc., where therefore growth is much higher. Also, it doesn't mean land is not fertile, but not as fertile as what it would be in eastern India due to deltaic plains and all. Also, Punjab and Haryana were, due to Mahalwari system, were still living with a lot of big landlords who were already experimenting with crops even during the British period. In fact, if you read history of Punjab, of course, I'm not here to teach you that, but just to tell you the context of it, Maharaja Ranjit Singh would be the person who had introduced modern methods of agricultural farming in Punjab, and of course Haryana in those days also, way before independence. So Punjab and Haryana was quite used to it, of taking up new commodities, growing new kind of crops, and using new machines, and that made them an obvious choice. And then the willingness of the farmers, which will be your fourth point. You write that up. The farmers, I'll tell you actually what was happening. Why do we conclude willingness of the farmers? Because somebody was there in one of the earlier batches. तो उन्होंने कहा हमें कैसे पता farmers willing थे? ये पता चलता था in response of the farmers. How did we get to know that farmers were willing? We got to know that by response of the farmers in the intensive agricultural area program. That how good, bad, ugly was the system performing in IAAP. It gave us a very good pilot idea that, okay, these areas the farmers are more interested, these areas the farmers are less interested, or not majorly programmed to achieve things, and so on. Since I told you this, I'll tell you, maybe, I don't know, historically some people give this as a reason, that northwestern India has seen a lot of immigration, and due to that it keeps the whole place dynamic. You know, if the Mughals would come, they would come from that side. When the Aryan invasion took place, it came around. Now, some people in India believe there was no Aryan invasion. So, you know, we will have to keep quiet on that in few days. But at the moment, I'm allowed to speak, so I would still believe that there was an Aryan invasion. So that's what the historical method suggests. So all those would happen through the Hindu Kush and the Karakoram. And that meant the first point of exposure would be northwestern Indian subcontinent. But a good thing it did to northwest Indian subcontinent was, it did not let them live without dynamism. Because new people bring their own new ideas. You would be experiencing it firsthand in your UPSC preparation, assuming if you are interacting with new people. You would realize that people coming from different regions can have their own views, their own ideas, and if we are open to those ideas, then we grow much better. And believe me, I've experienced it a lot in my life. You know, because with God's grace, I've traveled a lot, almost 43 countries now. You know, so when I meet people and talk to them, I actually feel that there is a hell lot to learn everywhere, which you learn from people. But that's what dynamism does if migration is continuous. Eastern side of India had two issues. I'm just giving you a basic comparison, but western and eastern coasts also show this reflection. Western coasts were major coasts of trade. You know, eastern coasts were not the major coasts of trade, especially during British India. And eastern India was a permanent settlement, nice ensconced area. Ensconced is comfortably established. Alright, जहाँ लोग आराम से खटिया पे सोते हैं, खेती होती है, कुछ लोग करते हैं, बातचीत होती है. अभी भी मेरा गांव बिहार में है, मैं वहाँ जाता हूँ, मुझे बहुत लोग दिखते हैं जिनका दिन भर का एक ही काम है, बातें करना. You know, they have this whole business for the day. You know, they remain very busy, they talk. You know, that is their whole, now I don't blame them, they don't have much to do, the qualification is low, the capability is less, and the willingness is even lesser. But the survival is because of the land inherited. Now it's not that they are zamindars and landlords today, it's not that they have huge land holding, but even at 10 bigha, 8 bigha, 5 bigha is good if you have a single family to run and you don't have high aspirations. So in a rural area it keeps you good. Plus you have a family name. So people still come to you and tell you things, and they don't disrespect you in front of you at least, you know. So all that happens now. But what does it do? It takes away the dynamism from the society. Dynamism comes from aspiration. If you don't want, imagine today, why are you in such a lurch today? Imagine, तुम्हारी तो अच्छी जिंदगी है ना, खाते हो, पीते हो, रहते हो अच्छे से, पेरेंट्स हैं ही. अब सोचो अगर तुमने ये डिसाइड कर लिया होता कि मुझे भी आगे कुछ नहीं बनना है. You know, this is my life's aim, that I will be nothing. I used to scare my mother saying all this in my childhood. You know, ऐसे ही मजा करता था उनके साथ. Childhood means adolescence actually. When I was a 9th, 10th standard kid, my mother, like any other upper middle class woman, आपको भी अपनी मदद से सुनने को मिलता पड़ता होगा बहुत बार. You would have heard it saying that if you don't study, what will you do in life and what will happen to you? So she would often tell me this. You got to study well. If you don't study, what will you do in life? Where will you earn your money from? And I would tease her. I would tell her, oh, dad has made this 3-storied house. I'll put two of the floors on rent. And on one floor I will live, life will be happy. तो वो बोलते भी थे कि भाई भी तो है तुम्हारा, उसको क्या करोगे? तो उसका पैर पकड़ लूंगा कि तुम तो कमाते धमाते हो, मुझे रहने दो यहाँ आराम से. तो for some days she was seriously worried that this fellow has these plans, you know. But I actually used to have fun with her because, you know, I always believe that study cannot be for survival. Survival can happen even without studies. Even good income can happen without studies. Study should be for upgrading yourself. But anyways, I won't go that side. But that is what is one of the banes of Eastern India at times. That for many people, low-level equilibrium is what is suiting them. And they're not willing to come out of it. And that low-level equilibrium becomes sometimes, it's okay, maybe some people can say it's happiness, fair enough, but end of the day, a low-level equilibrium. That no experiments done, no risk taken, playing safe always, not willing to change much, you know, and so on. It's cultural. आप में से जो लोग उधर से आते हो, आप आइडेंटिफाई कर पा रहे होगे जो बात मैं कह रहा हूँ. मैं एक परमानेंट नौकरी करता था दिल्ली स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स में जब प्रोफेसर था. तो हमारे यहाँ तो टेम्पररी लाइफ में परमानेंट नौकरी होती है. Whether you are alive or not tomorrow, it doesn't matter, but your job has to be permanent. Now I left it one day to join Massachusetts, with whom I'm still working. And I can't tell you, my father took 2-3 days to actually internalize it, you know. First of all, I took 7-8 days to break it to him. And that also I did not do. I asked my wife, I said, call him up and tell him I have left Delhi school and I'll be working for MIT now. I've set up my own company. And she called him up, she told him all that. He didn't call me back for 2-3 days. Then after 3 days, he said, chalo, tumne soch hi liya hai, kar lo jo karoge. So he was still not very happy about what I was going to do. But that is us, you know, because a permanent job is a risk-free investment, you know, and doing things. So that's what he had expected. That, okay, he has gone to do his PhD abroad, he has come back, and now this fellow will settle down. He's a professor at a Delhi university. बस अब जिंदगी चलेगी 35 साल ऐसे ही, तो चलना चाहिए. Unfortunately, it didn't go like that with me. So that is, again, I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying he was incorrect. He was correct in what he thought is correct. I was correct in what I thought. But experimentation doesn't come easy to many people who are used to living in an atmosphere where everything, at least the basics are available. You know, that is the point I'm trying to make to you. In fact, Indian mindset में आपको ये देखेगा, बहुत जगह है. You look at people who are good musicians in India, cricketers in India, more often than not, you would see them, cricket में तो बहुत often तुम देखोगे, you would see them either coming from an upper elite group. Upper elite doesn't mean super elite, just the upper elite, where the parents had more than enough money, and they could know that, okay, the child can pursue the dream. I'm talking 30 years back. Today it's IPL days, so everybody pursues the dream. You know, मैं 20-25 साल पहले की बात कर रहा हूँ, economics समझा रहा हूँ आपको इसका. Otherwise, they would come from a lower middle income background where they knew that academics don't take them far anyways. You understand that? So this created the whole structure in India that risk लेते कौन थे? Risk या तो वो लेते थे जिनका income इतना कम था कि उनको पता था कि risk नहीं लेंगे तो वैसे भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, grow नहीं कर सकते, या फिर जिनका income इतना ज़्यादा था कि उनको लगता था risk ले लो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, नहीं pay off करेगा तो भी कोई बात नहीं, पैसे तो हैं ही घर में. But that is where, but your real education, your real money, real talent can also lie in what we call the real social, so not economic, but sociological middle class. That is where your real talents can also lie. They were not taking risks in India, and not at all in the eastern side of India, which could have been the other possible place of Green Revolution. Hence I stopped and told you all this. All right, from 2 of my students, this question was asked. Both of them incidentally happened to be from Eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar belt. And they were asked this question, that why do you think Eastern Uttar Pradesh or Bihar was not chosen for Green Revolution, and why Punjab was chosen? Do you think the government was being discriminatory? Please don't end up and start singing your paeans there. You know, कि हाँ बैठकर अपना दुखड़ा रोने लगा, हाँ sir, government was very discriminatory. You know, इसी का वजह से ये सब हुआ. No, the government had solid reasons to do that. Plus, remember, now I'm taking you to the 5 reasons I have given you in the booklet. Plus, there were other reasons also. The government could not have made it an all-India affair. We needed big change, but quick change. An all-India affair would have made it big, but not quick. We had lesser resources. We didn't have enough seeds that we could have spread all over India. We did not have enough assured irrigation sources that we could have spread it all over India. Also, we did not have enough expertise that we could have sent people all over India. So it had to be done on a confined space over a quick period of time and then see how it works out. And that was again a reason that these three places, Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh, were chosen. If you get into your notes, you will see that this is just in the point above benefits of Green Revolution. There are 5 points I have given you. The government gave 5 main reasons for introducing the new technique. I hope you have found it. I'll complete it. I'm just explaining it. I'll come back to the 4th point. You just wait and cover this, then the 4th will make a little more sense to you. So if you see the 1st point, it was considered the only means to make a breakthrough in short span of time. Now if you want to do it in short span of time, you got to be focused in few areas. Alright, so it's thought, okay, let's go for Green Revolution due to that. Agricultural inputs were scarce, so it was not possible to go for the entire country. Alright, I've already told you these points. I hope they are making better sense to you now. Another thing was that HYVP was introduced to remove dependence. Foreign aid was a big problem for India, and we wanted to get rid of this foreign aid. Again, it was thought that let's go for those regions that give us very high productivity. Let's go for those regions that give us very high productivity. Again, that is why it was chosen few regions, but more impetus. Impact ज़्यादा डाले, area छोटा हो बेशक. Another thing the government said was that the demonstration effect will work. You know, once these regions do well, and this worked in India. Green Revolution spread from Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh gradually to places like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, parts of coastal Karnataka, parts of Kerala, then gradually to Eastern India, Bihar, Eastern Uttar Pradesh. Even though Bihar, Eastern Uttar Pradesh had other reasons that productivity could not rise as high as a Punjab, but still it was comparatively much higher. So it took time for Green Revolution, but the demonstration effect was working. What is demonstration effect? You see somebody else growing, you see somebody practicing a technique, and you also learn from it, and then you also start practicing it. That is demonstration effect. Do I believe I'm clear on that? Alright, जब आप दूसरों को देखे ग्रो करते हुए, तो आपको लगा अच्छा ये तरीका सही है, अभी मैं भी कर सकता हूँ. Alright, that is demonstration effect. And then they said, politically it was impossible and not feasible to continue with shortage of food. Alright, people were becoming restless. Why were people becoming restless? I'll tell you one more thing there. What was happening was that the rich were not suffering. Alright, the poor were. Shortages hurt the poor a lot. The rich will pay more and arrange things for themselves. So the rich were not suffering, the poor were. But then that is something where the poor were now getting more. See, political infeasibility, when does it arise? If you're, say a government, if your opposition is weak, then nothing is politically infeasible. Because nobody is highlighting to people what are you doing incorrect. If you have a strong opposition, now by mid-1960s, especially after Pandit Nehru's death, opposition had gathered steam because even within the Congress, everybody was not on the same page. There was no such leader who would be considered as tall as Pandit Nehru. So everybody now fancied their chances. Whether it was a Gulzari Lal Nanda or it was a Morarji Desai, everybody were fancying their chances. Mrs. Gandhi, of course, were fancying their chances that, okay, I can also be the next prime minister. Now what do? And then you have the other opposition, CPI in those days, CPM happened gradually later. So they will start highlighting your fallacies now to people. And then people start realizing, look, actually we are not getting what we should have been getting. And that was the political infeasibility after mid-60s. I'm trying to give you an answer that why was it not politically an issue in 1950s? Because shortage of food was there in India before independence and then after independence. So politically it should have been an issue in 1950s. But in 1950s, Pandit Nehru being a tall leader, Congress well placed in all the states except for a short duration in Kerala. The opposition was not huge. So nobody highlighted to the common people that look, this shortage of food, shortage of stuff, inflation, you don't deserve it. Government should focus on this. Government should work it out. You understand that? Now, this started getting highlighted from 1961, 62, 63. Then the wars will happen. Wars will make things more short. Another thing was from 1956 to 1962-63, there was 7-8 continuous years when our major resources were devoted to industry. So whatever surplus, even whatever surplus the government got, it was majorly invested to create industries, develop infrastructure, and which type of infrastructure? Which will again promote industrialization. So rural areas, crop production, government investment in it, barring the big dam part. Big dams were constructed, but barring the big dam part, we did not see huge public investment in agriculture. Private investment in agriculture was already weak. All right, how do you invest in agriculture? I use this term, public investment in agriculture and private investment in agriculture. How do you invest in agriculture? Okay, you develop transportation facility, you develop storage facilities, harvesting possibilities, connectivity to the market, all right, irrigation facilities, crop protection facilities like fencing of the field. I'm sure all of us understand that. These are investments in agriculture. All right, land leveling facilities, mixing of land and all. All right, so these are all investments in agriculture. Now, normally in India, investment in agriculture was not very high till late 1970s. Whether by the government or by the private sector, mainly till 60s because the government was focused heavily on industry. But if you don't create capital formation in any sector, your productivity, that is capacity to produce, will remain low. Yes, yes. No, subsidies is not investment. Subsidies are grants that you give. So say an MSP, etc. This we were doing from 65 again, but they are not investments. Investments are addition to capital goods which can increase your production capacity. No, proper insurance were introduced only from 2008, Rashtriya Krishi Bima Yojana. Before that, we did not have a formal insurance. And there was no training. Even today, there is no major training of insurance in agriculture. मैं तुम्हें उसका एक example देता हूँ. Imagine, total agricultural production in India, total agricultural production is approximately 46 lakh crore rupees. And the total budget we have for Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is 17,000 crore rupees. So you can imagine the coverage, of even today of irrigation in Indian agriculture, So let's see this then. So what happened was, all these were the reasons why Green Revolution was introduced immediately in India. You write the fourth point and then we take it further. You write, the farmers were more willing to use new methods especially new variety of seed, and in Punjab and Haryana, which promoted Green Revolution in those areas. The development of research and development capabilities was not very huge in 60s in India, Samyak. But if you mean it as a part of investment in agriculture, then I agree with you. Your other points on storage, irrigation work, etc. are also correct. Subsidies, Anusha, don't count them as investment. They are not investment. There is one question that one of your friend asks me. The question asked is, most of the laborers in Punjab and Haryana are from Eastern UP and Bihar. What could be the reason behind this? Low productivity and hence less work. So if the home state gives you less work, you migrate. In fact, most of the laborers, not only in Punjab and Haryana, but even in Maharashtra, Bengal, as far as Kerala, will be from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. All right, that's very normal that you would see. because these regions have not been able to develop as much. But don't forget, the fertility rate in these regions is very high. So the population growth is high. Also, don't forget that the population in the people who are relatively poor is growing at a faster pace. And all that creates labor supply to other places because you don't get enough possibility nearer home. And that is why Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, parts of Orissa and Madhya Pradesh should be the focal point of growth for India. That these are the places, if we can make them grow faster and better, then a lot of Indian growth can happen. And never listen to these discussions. I'm just warning you, in the early sessions only. We are still early together, only in our second week. Never listen to these sessions or these talks with any statehood in your mind. All right? मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा दिक्कत इसी बात से होती है जब लोग इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विस का एग्जाम की तैयारी करते हुए खुद को कर्नाटका, तमिलनाडु, बिहार, पंजाब, बंगाल से मानते हैं। तुम्हें जाम्बिया भेज देंगे 6 दिन के लिए, तुम्हें पाकिस्तानियों से प्यार होगा क्योंकि वो तुम्हारी भाषा समझेंगे। You know, they will understand your language, they will love your cuisine, you would start loving them, believe me. You know, so when we are in our country, then we believe, oh, I am from Bihar, I am from Uttar Pradesh, I am from Punjab. I always believe and very strongly believe that we are all from India, and eye cannot differentiate itself from the ears and the shoulders. You know, if the shoulder is in pain, the eye cannot get happy at that. All right? तो अगर कोई आप में से बाई चांस ये सोचते हो, अरे कर्नाटका में तो ये दिक्कत है, अरे तमिलनाडु का वो प्रॉब्लम है, अरे बिहार तो ये दिक्कत है, ये तो मेरा स्टेट नहीं है, ये तुम्हारा ही देश है. So please internalize it and inculcate it. You know, because if we keep living the other life, then that is where the finance minister of Kerala is found giving a statement that Kerala has to be independent in food production, otherwise it can be danger in future. Well, what else is the future if not India? And then why should one Indian state be bothered about remaining independent in food? Any state for that matter, independent in food or anything if other states can supply it to it. And why should one state be reluctant in supplying it to the other state? It's like eye telling the shoulder, I can't see for you. So can't do that. So always be careful. मैं रुक के इसलिए बोला क्योंकि इंडियन इकोनॉमी एनालाइज करते हुए हम बहुत बार बात करेंगे, इस स्टेट में ऐसा हुआ, उस स्टेट में ऐसा हुआ. तो मुझे याद है मेरे एक बहुत अच्छे प्रोफेसर थे, बट उनमें रीजनलिज्म बहुत ज़्यादा थी. नाम नहीं बताऊंगा उनका आपको मैं. You know, he's a very renowned and very good professor at Delhi School. He used to teach us, and he was telling us some data. And matter of factly, we asked him about. Matter of factly, it was never intended. We didn't even know which state he comes from, but we asked him about his state. Sir, what is the data for this state? And his immediate reaction was, I'm coming to my state. My? What does that mean? I was born in Bihar. If I start taking only Bihar as my state, the first mistake, you know what we will do? Even if you take Bihar as your state, if you were born there, and only Bihar as your state, the mistake is you will start getting defensive about the problems of Bihar. अगर कोई पूछेगा ना बिहार में बैकवर्डनेस क्यों है, परेशानी होगी बोलने में कि क्यों है, फिर आप डिफेंसिव हो जाओगे. Oh, it was because coal was given from Bihar to other places free of cost. It was because the central government never bothered about Bihar. We will never try going into the right reasons. And that is what it creates as a problem. Then we will also start blaming other states. And if you start blaming other states, then how does nation become one? So always remain very careful. India is a unitary system. It is not a federal system like Americans. We are not United States of India. Always remember that. You know, because we can never be United States of India. We are different set in that sense. So constitution भी इसीलिए unitary in structure रखता है खुद को. All right. So federal powers are there, but the unitary structure is there to bind us. I hope I have made myself clear. तो अगली बार से अगर मैं किसी स्टेट के बारे में बोलूंगा ये अंडरडेवलप्ड है या डेवलप्ड है या इस स्टेट में ये दिक्कत है, तो आप अपने मन में ये बिल्कुल नहीं सोचोगे मेरे स्टेट की बात हो रही है. ये सारी बातें हमारे देश की हो रही हैं. All right? तो हमारे देश की बात हो रही है तो इक्वल इमोशन इन्वॉल्व रहेगा, चाहे कहीं की बात करें हम. Anyways, I just made myself clear so that in case I am talking about a state, different emotions don't come inside your mind. Because then you will not be listening to me, you will be thinking about the statehood part. So we are very careful on that. All right, yes. nationalism is a bad ism again. Nationalism is what takes you closer to jingoism. I'm answering a question that why not nationalism? Nationalism is also an ism. Why nationalism? Why can't we be nationalistic? You know, jingoism kya hota hai? Where I start criticizing Pakistan to prove India is great. Why? India can be great without criticizing Pakistan. But that's what takes you that side. So it's maybe a wrong usage of term if you ask me. Britishers created many isms. When they said Hinduism, see what is an ism? Please understand. Since you asked me this question, I'll quickly take 1 minute to clarify it to you. What is an ism? A code of conduct which says anybody who is outside this code of conduct is doing heresy. हेरेसी का मतलब पाप, व्यभिचार, इसे हेरेसी कहते हैं. ये इज्म होता है. तो आप एक इज्म कब बनाते हो? जब आप कहते हो ये मेरा कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट है, और जो इस कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट को नहीं मानते वो मेरे खिलाफ, इस इज्म के खिलाफ, वो रिविजनिस्ट, इन्हें पनिशमेंट मिलनी चाहिए. बट व्हाई क्रिएट एन इज्म? जब आप कहते हो हिंदुइज्म, बट देयर इज नथिंग कॉल्ड हिंदुइज्म, बिकॉज हिंदुइज्म, आई मीन हिंदू रिलीजन इज नॉट अ कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट. ब्रिटिशर्स क्रिएटेड इट. Similarly, nationalism, Europeans created it. I mean, India did not go for the concept of nationalism. India went for the concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam. वो तो हम लोग नहीं पढ़ते हैं ना ऐसे. हमें यूरोपियन हिस्ट्री इतनी जबरदस्त पढ़ा दी मैकले के मदद से कि हमें लगता है यूरोप दुनिया है, तो हमारी सोच भी यूरोप को दुनिया मानती है. नेशनलिज्म वाज क्रिएटेड एज अ कंसेप्ट. 300 साल पहले नेशनहुड था कहां? Where was a nation state 300 years back? So I am not talking about a nation state protection right now. I am talking about us. India's future lies with India remaining together. I just was trying to tell you that. I mean, one state, another state, we are all interdependent. Nobody survives individually. My message was just that. And again, remember, it's not about being nationalistic. It's about having affection for the entire region which belongs to you. It's all mine. I believe in that. You know, I mean, Manipur is as much mine and Kerala is as much mine as what a Bihar can be. मेरे तो वाइफ भी वेस्ट बंगाल से हैं और मेरे बच्चों का जन्म यहाँ हुआ. मेरे ग्रैंडमदर भी वेस्ट बंगाल के थे. मैं तो अपनी वाइफ से मजाक भी करता हूँ कि अच्छी बात है अगर लव जिहाद का कंसेप्ट रीजनल बेसिस पे आ जाए तो वेस्ट बंगाल के लोग आके हमारे घर के आगे धरना दे देंगे कि ये लोग जो बिहार में बॉर्न हैं ये वेस्ट बंगाल की गर्ल्स से शादी कर रहे हैं. क्योंकि ऐसी अजीब अजीब बातें हो रही हैं हमारे देश में आजकल. Two adults marrying each other and we are objecting to that, saying that one adult is manipulating the other. This is ridiculous. Let's get out of it. You know, ये unnecessary है. This takes you away from economic development. These are unnecessary focus. Two people deciding to marry each other, and if they are adults, permitted by the constitution, no third party has a say in it. Always remember that. You know, but we are creating all those says and we are confusing things. That is why. Anyways, I won't go that side. Now, coming to this part, yes. नहीं ये रीजन नहीं था. ये चीजें नहीं थी ऐसा नहीं था. दीज वर देयर बट रीजन दैट वी हैड लो प्रोडक्टिविटी जो मैंने तुम्हें ऑलरेडी बता रखा है वाज बिकॉज ऑफ लीविंग लैंड फैलो, वेस्टिंग द एरिया इन कल्टिवेशन. सो हायर लैंड एरियाज वर नॉट कल्टिवेबल नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ मैकेनाइजेशन अलोन. ये कारण तो स्मॉलर लैंड पे भी वैलिड है. नहीं वो मुश्किल था. द क्वेश्चन आई एम आंसरिंग इज दैट व्हाई डिड वी गो फॉर लैंड रिफॉर्म एंड नॉट फॉर सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी इन फूड. बट पॉइंट वाज दैट there was no Norman Borlaug and dwarf quality of wheat till as late as 1962. So that trial could have begun only then. Secondly, land reforms were more imperative because that was the reason of lack of adequacy in Indian agriculture. So you needed to reform. In fact, it's unfortunate we could not complete land reforms. If we had done that, agriculture could have done maybe better than what it did. All right. Okay. Now see, I take you further now. I talk to you about some of the benefits of Green Revolution. Now the question I have seen them asking you is to critically analyze Green Revolution. Another question they asked us was about only to highlight the benefits of Green Revolution. They can also ask you only to highlight the problems of Green Revolution. So the question on Green Revolution have occurred many times in our system. So these are all possibilities they can ask us to come across. So when we look at these things. I mean, again, it's in your notes, part of it. Some which is not, I'll make you write that. So one is very fast increase in production of food grains, especially cereals, wheat and rice. This was due to Green Revolution, making us food independent. And the growth was huge. I just want you to add one thing in that. The notes gives you data till 2013-14. You just add into that. By 2021, in the first point itself, please add this across. Okay, establishment of mandis I accept. By 2021, comma, food grain production has crossed 300 million tons. 300 million tons, with wheat production at 105 million tons, and rice production at 130 million tons, 130. Now understand one more thing in this. This year these productions will be slightly lesser. This production is for 2021. 21-22 Rabi season, wheat production is expected to be around 95 million tons. And this Kharif season, rice production will be something like 120 million tons. But let the final numbers come, I will update you on that. All right, right now we have these numbers as the actual numbers. I'm keeping it on that. So, but this is one factor, massive increase in food grain availability in India, leading to removing food hunger issue completely from India. Then, if you will see, increase in production of commercial crops. I'm explaining it to you. The numbers I have given you in the notes. What happened was, with Green Revolution, the farmers learned new technology. Now, even if there was no high-yielding variety of seeds, the farmers knew how to use pesticides, how to use fertilizers, how to use big machines, and that increased productivity in other crops. So whether it was cotton or sugarcane or even vegetables, the overall production went up because of the learning experience of Green Revolution. Do I believe you're clear on this? That other crops grew not because of high-yielding variety of seeds. Remember, even other agricultural revolutions in India, like Yellow Revolution in oilseed, was not because of a high-yielding variety of seed. It was because of better technology learned by the Indian farmers, more confidence in using those technologies, and that resulted in other crops also rising in value. Do I believe I reach you on that? Then, the third reason, if you will see, I just want you to write a point here. When this is significant changes in cropping pattern after Green Revolution. So in that, you just write the third factor. I've given you the cropping pattern changes. I'll quickly read it for you so that you get my point. You stay with the notes. Cropping pattern, and I'll teach you cropping pattern in India separately, but just a point to make what I'm trying to teach you in this. So cropping pattern among cereals deviated away from pulses, moved towards wheat and rice. Like earlier, around 1/3 area was devoted to pulses. That got reduced, and wheat and rice started becoming more dominant. In fact, wheat became a very dominant part. 11% of the total area was for wheat in the pre-Green Revolution phase. It increased to 22% in the post-Green Revolution phase. So area under wheat increased heavily in the post-Green Revolution phase. Even the area under rice increased by more than 10%. Like area under rice used to be 31% of the total food grain area. It increased to 35% of total area under food grain. So area under wheat, area under rice, they registered a high increase. Area under pulses and area under millets, they went down. In pulses it was almost stagnant, but in millets it came down significantly. All right, almost 28% of the area in India was under millets, came down to 14% post-Green Revolution. So wheat and rice became more prominent, pulses, millets, etc. became less important. That was one. Another was, of course, within wheat and rice, wheat was rising even faster. And in cash crops, a lot of diversity was observed, say cotton or sugarcane or vegetables or flowers. Now, why is that an advantage? Or why is this talk brought in an advantage? I'll make you write that. Because it promoted exports from India gradually. India started exporting a lot of rice, basmati and non-basmati. India started exporting sugar. India started exporting, in some of the years, even cotton. So that was foreign exchange earnings for India. So I'm just making you write that. At the side of your point, you please write that. It increased export of agricultural commodities. In the third point itself, you just write that. It increased export of agricultural commodities. It increased export of agricultural commodities, which led to higher inflow of foreign exchange reserves. Higher inflow of foreign exchange reserves. So that was another thing that it did. And this happened mostly after 1980s. It didn't happen immediately. Don't forget, Green Revolution was initiated in 66. It took 10-11 years to properly stabilize. And it was only around 1980s that India was in a position where the actual benefits could be observed. All right, so the real benefits of Green Revolution were here by 1980s. And then another factor was agricultural employment picked up in certain areas. This is your fourth point. Agricultural employment picked up in certain areas. आप उसी point के नीचे देखो, आपको लिखा मिलेगा. मैंने आपको reasons दिए हैं, मैं आपको explain कर रहा हूँ. One was agricultural product. There were multiple crops now done with Green Revolution. Why? Because now with better irrigation, मैं मान सकता हूँ आप जिंदा होकर सुन रहे हो मुझे? ठीक है. मैं ऑनलाइन वालों से भी पूछ रहा हूँ, घुलट तो नहीं गया भाई, सर्दियों का टाइम आ रहा है, धीरे धीरे रजाई यहाँ से यहाँ जाते जाते ऊपर तक गया, so just save yourself from that. और तुम लोग तो वर्चुअल रजाई में जाओगे जो दिख नहीं रहा, so just save yourself from that. So coming back to my point, so remember two reasons why employment growth happened in India. So one reason why employment growth happened in India in agriculture was due to multiple cropping. Why multiple cropping? What Green Revolution did, high yielding variety of crops, chemical fertilizers, insecticides, protecting the crops much better, proper irrigation. The crop yield became higher due to faster maturity of crops. बिना proper पानी के, बिना proper fertilizer के, जिस crop को पहले 7 महीने लगते थे grow करने को, वो 4, 4.5, 5 महीने में grow करने लगे. Do I reach you on that? That without proper technique, without proper fertilizer, etc., the crop which would take 7 months to grow would now take 3, 4, 4.5 months to grow. It's like this. When you use chemical fertilizers, then it means that you can replenish your soil much more quickly as compared to what you would otherwise. So now you have to leave your soil fallow for a very long period of time. All that was not needed in the post-Green Revolution period. Also remember, canalization is supplying water through canals. So canalization of irrigation was the initial impetus. जो शुरुआत का benefit था वो canal irrigation से आ रहा था, लेकिन धीरे धीरे ये shift हो गया to borewell irrigation. Alright, even today in India, borewell irrigation is the major source of irrigation. Earlier it used to be canal irrigation in the initial days of Green Revolution. But by mid-1970s, even in Punjab and Haryana, with borewells becoming popular, people started using groundwater, pumping it up, and using it for irrigation. Now that meant, again, that faster maturity of crop became a possibility. So whichever crop used to take 7-8 months earlier was now taking 4-5 months. Means what? You will grow more crops. Now you tell me, if you grow more crops, will seasonal unemployment be more or less? Less. And if you grow more crops, will disguised unemployment be more or less? Less. Disguised unemployment is more people working on a field but not producing sufficient. Now obviously these people had more work to do. Seasonal unemployment means that you are without work in the off season. Again, the off seasons became less. Now it was not about sitting idle for 4-5 months. You develop a kharif crop. What do we do today? Even today you see that same pattern. We grow a kharif crop, we sow it in end April, early May, in some states in June. Then we harvest it by October, sometimes by November. Like by October end, November first week, all harvesting would be done. And then we again sow it back by November mid, the next crop, and again harvest it by April. So you're practically involved, in agriculture in that sense. So your off season becomes shorter in duration. That started happening. Then remember the second point. In the Green Revolution part, the average productivity increased and marginal productivity increased. So the farmers now were producing more on the margin and on an average. If your average product becomes more, your surplus possibilities become higher. And those surplus possibilities are your savings in agriculture. And that means now investment started picking up in agriculture. This was seen in 1980s very often. Investment started picking up in agriculture, and with more investment, there was more possibility of job creation, like cattle rearing, poultry farming, fisheries. Look at this. We go for white revolution from mid-1970s. Why? Now we felt farmers are relatively more prepared. We go for yellow revolution from mid-1980s. Again, we felt now the farmers can go for oil seeds. We go for blue revolution, Neel Kranti कहते थे जिसको, so blue revolution from 1986. So this was the time when government of India was feeling that right, farmers are trained a bit now into things, surplus is being produced in agriculture, we can induce them to invest more and grow better. So higher investment, more jobs, and multiple cropping, more jobs. Do I believe these two things can remain with you? I'll just take a minute. These are the 2 points that I have given you, A and B. Multiple cropping patterns which involved more agricultural workers, and agricultural employment improved due to high agricultural productivity, which increased both AP and MP. And AP and MP rise means that you are growing at a faster rate. If your marginal product is rising, it suggests the first stage of production, when you're growing at a faster pace and you can expect more surplus. All right? On the margin, you are growing more, so you expect more surplus in that case. If both marginal product and average product are rising, then which curve will be above? Marginal? किसी के मन में भी एवरेज नहीं आ रहा और मैवरेज तो बिल्कुल नहीं आ रहा? ठीक है, आप में से जो भी लोग मिस कर गए हो, आप याद कर लो, if this is your marginal product, then this kind of thing is your average product, the maximum being here. So if marginal is rising, then marginal got to be above average. If marginal product is rising, then marginal product will be above average product. All right, so if marginal is rising, marginal will be above average. All right, and what does that mean? That means for every extra labor that you are employing, that labor is contributing more compared to the average contribution of till then the previous labor hours. And that means higher productivity. And that is the surplus. This difference of marginal and average. Marginal average का मतलब समझते हो? ठीक है. If marginal is higher than average, then that means every next worker is producing more than the average that had been produced till then by all the workers. And that means the surplus is higher and higher. हर अगला जो आ रहा है वो ज़्यादा प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है. आप में से जो लोग बिल्कुल भूल गए हो या बहुत हेजी हो गया है, आप ऐसे समझो, अगर आपके हर अगले ओवर में एक बैट्समैन आके पिछले ओवर से क्या रन रेट से ज़्यादा रन मारे, तो आपके रन रेट बढ़ता रहेगा या नहीं बढ़ता रहेगा? और अगर ये भी नहीं समझ रहे हो तो मुझे बाद में मिलना. Alright. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if in every over a batsman is hitting more runs than the run rate of till that over, the average, obviously the run rate will keep rising, which means what? You have more and more faster increase. If marginal is growing higher than average, the increase in the total will be at a faster rate. जब इस stage में होते हो तुम, marginal growing faster than average, your total is increasing at an increasing rate. This is the phase that was being observed post Green Revolution. The total product was rising at a much faster rate. And that is where people were becoming conscious that, okay, surplus is being generated here. And that can be used for more technical upgradation, investments, etc. Do I believe we can get that? In case you have not read NCERT Micro, pick that up and read it. In the chapter on production and cost, you will see all these kind of curves made. You know, so see those chapters and you will get going. All right. In case you have not seen it, I know you are wonderful people. You must have seen it by now. I know I'm lying. All right. Let's see this then. So that was the other benefit that Green Revolution was creating, higher employment that it generated. And then I've given you one more point, that it increased the linkages between agriculture and industry. This point borrows itself directly from the point I was explaining to you when I was teaching you India between 1980 and 1990, when I told you that agricultural growth led to higher demand for industrial inputs, tractors, threshers, fertilizers, and so on. Backward linkages established well, and then I told you that India's higher growth agricultural higher growth led to higher demand for industrial finished goods, consumer goods, that is, both consumer durables and consumer FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. So this is linkages between agriculture and industry becoming higher. Linkages between agriculture and industry becoming higher. So these were the benefits that Green Revolution was creating. You write one more point, you can take that as the sixth point. You write the spread of Green Revolution resulted in improving farmers' capability in developing alternative investments, leading to the beginning of practicing integrated farming in India. All right. No, international price fluctuations won't create a problem in those days, Samyak, because we were not open to international trade in agriculture in those days. You're right, Niharika, in your statement, and your other question on GS, it will be covered in the class, so don't worry. When I'm teaching you paper 2, your GS part will be covered. But these questions, apart from Green Revolution, of course, in GS paper 3, they have asked a question on Green Revolution in the past. So they can ask you questions from Green Revolution or Yellow Revolution, because oil seeds are becoming important these days. From agriculture, in any case, in GS paper 3 also, they ask you 2 questions every year. But most of your GS paper 3 if you ask me, will be India after 91. All right, most of it will be that India after 91 will be that, and some part of your GS paper 3 will be money banking, some part of your GS paper 3 will be public economics. I have only one request that I want to make to all of you. Please do not supplement your optional understanding with all those books that stay in the market. They are not even level of GS properly. They are thick books created well, that's completely okay, nothing against the authors, but those books are not required in your preparation of optional economics. तो किन्हीं की भी बुक हो, आपको कितने भी फेमस लगे, लेकिन आप अवॉइड ही करना उसे. It will unnecessarily interfere with your own understanding. In optional, in any case, we take things into too many details. If you would have seen me, or if you see the books also, or other places also, the amount of time that is devoted on, say, Indian economy between 51 and 91, in optional we are devoting almost double that time, just for the trend compared to what we would devote otherwise for the entire time period. You know, so that is what optional is about, that we got to devote much more time, go into more depths, and so on. Another thing is, which one of your friend asks me online also, white revolution had phases, green revolution did not have phases. So they will not ask you on phases of green revolution. White revolution had phases, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, but green revolution did not have phases. All right, green revolution was kind of a continuum, starting with wheat, going towards rice, and then going thereafter. Now these are the benefits that green revolution creates. What is integrated farming? A farmhouse combined with, so cropping, combined with poultry, dairying, and so on. You know, that is integrated farming. You're practicing several things all together. Now, what were the challenges of green revolution? We go into that. The challenges of green revolution. Again, I've given you some points. I will explain them to you. One is that it has still not removed the problem of lack of productivity due to assured irrigation. Establishment of APMC, etc. was institutional changes brought about to support green revolution by government, but it was not due to green revolution. All right, there were institutional changes brought about to support green revolution. All right. Yes, I'll just take a second. Yes, yes. No, it was not a major issue. The dependence on Kharif crop or say a Rabi crop at times was not because they didn't know how to grow the other crop, but the problem was that the agricultural season would be much longer. So the crop maturity would be much longer, and therefore they had to kind of keep waiting. So now with Green Revolution, that problem was resolved, and they could do things faster. All right. Yes, yes. I'll be coming to all those. The factors of related, like these are just benefits and all. The technological factors on Green Revolution are these 4 that I wrote for you. Institutional factors of Green Revolution are marketing, etc. All right, that marketing benefit, banking benefit, credit benefit, they are the institutional factors. I'll be coming to that when I'm teaching you the second Green Revolution or evergreen revolution. But these are the technological factors. All right, the things related to techniques of farming. No, they did not ask you about technological factors of Green Revolution for 250 words. Yeah. आगे भी तो पढ़ो. नहीं, पूरा क्वेश्चन ये था, discuss the technological factors relating to Green Revolution in India, analyzing how it can be made an evergreen revolution. धप्पा कर रहे हो मुझे? नहीं, आगे का सवाल भी था, एनालाइजिंग दिस, वो पूरी बात लिखनी थी कि टेक्नोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स क्या क्या थे, ठीक है, और फिर उनको कैसे एवरग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन में कन्वर्ट किया. अभी मैं सिखाऊंगा तुम्हें, यू वेट ऑन दैट. नो नो, हैंग ऑन, डोंट वरी. Well, farming in general has benefited decently. All right, even if you talk, I mean, the small farmers of Punjab are nothing comparable to small farmers in other parts of India. they are comparatively richer than what they would be. So Punjab and Haryana has a different ecosystem in agriculture today. All right. Now see, when we look at challenges, as I told you, first is when we say Indian agriculture is still a gamble in monsoon. A gamble in monsoon here means that we are still not fully sufficient in making sure that even in the years when monsoon fails, our agriculture does better. That is where Indian agriculture is still a gamble in monsoon. That we are still not certain that even in the years when monsoons fail, we can do better. So that is the problem part. Green revolution, जब हम word use करते हैं revolution, तो meaning क्या होना चाहिए? ठीक है कुछ भी हो, ये हमें sustain कर लेगा. But that's not happening. It's not that anything happens and we are still sustaining. A bad monsoon is still bad news for the farmers, and bad news for economy in general. Because farming is one of the bulwarks still of Indian economy. So bad monsoons are giving us bad news in that sense. So that is one thing we need to be careful about. So that is one problem. Then the second problem that we have is growth of capitalist farming. Now I want you to complete this line. Growth of capitalist farming in Indian agriculture without capitalist institutions, without capitalist institutions in India. Now I will tell you what it means. Capitalist farming means फार्मिंग. मैं आपको इस पे अलग से भी लिखवा दूंगा, जो राइटअप आपके पास है उसके ऊपर भी कुछ बातें लिखवा दूंगा. I'll make you write few more things. Capitalist farming is farming for profit. Now before Green Revolution, most of India's farming, before Green Revolution, most of India's farming was subsistence in nature. We have discussed that. But with Green Revolution, surplus started coming in, and with surplus, we started experiencing what is called capitalist farming. Right? With surplus. Now what is capitalist farming in that sense? That farmers will grow a surplus, farmers will grow more, and then sell it to earn profit. Now understand, where do you sell it? In a capitalist system, where do you sell it? In the market. But in India, since we were a mixed economy with a very heavy tilt towards socialism, there was no market, especially for agricultural goods. So where did the farmers sell? To promote Green Revolution and to encourage farmers to keep growing more, the government created a system of APMC markets in 1965, where government said we will appoint traders, and these traders will be given license by the government, and these traders will buy from the farmers at the price determined by the government, whether it is the procurement price or it is the minimum support price. So government would fix a support price, that is, you can't buy at lesser than this, or government will fix a procurement price. Procurement price meant purchasing price for the government if the farmer did not need support. अब समझना ये बातें, दो बातें हैं, दोनों को ध्यान से समझना. एक प्राइस आप सुनते हो, there is one price you hear, minimum support price, MSP. When this system was introduced in India from 1965, this minimum support price was to save the farmers from loss. So it was said that if the crop is very huge, or if the price in the market suddenly falls, then government will declare a minimum support price, and the farmers can purchase at that minimum, sell at that minimum support price. But when will this be declared? Not every year. It will be declared only in those years when the crop was in a bad situation and the farmers were about to make a loss. न्यूनतम आधार मूल्य हर साल नहीं निर्धारित होगा, ये सोच थी उस वक्त. सोच ये थी कि जिस साल किसानों की हालत खराब होगी, जब वो प्रोडक्शन नहीं कर पाएंगे या इनकम रेवेन्यू अर्न नहीं कर पाएंगे, तो ये न्यूनतम आधार मूल्य स्थापित होगा. So the thinking was, minimum support price will not be established every year. Government doesn't need to declare it every year. Government will declare an MSP only in those years when the crop does badly or the farmer is unable to recover the cost. then the government will say, all right, you cannot charge a price lesser than this or give a price lesser than this. Apart from that, the government would also fix another price called procurement price. Now this procurement price, procurement means purchase. This procurement price was, government needed food for food security, public sector could have needed raw materials like cotton, jute, etc. Government said every year, now mind you, every year we will declare a procurement price. And at that price, we will procure from the farmer. And whatever is the extra left with the farmer can sell it in the market. And we have created the APMC market where the traders can interact with the farmers and the farmers can sell to them. Now tell me this, is the farmer selling in an open market or is the farmer now selling actually in a closed, established, government guaranteed market? Now look at the fun part here. As a rich farmer, government gives me a subsidy, say on fertilizer. I'm talking today's India also. Government gives me subsidy on electricity. Government arranges for me research and development in agriculture. Then I grow my crop. I sell it to the government itself at a price higher than the cost of production, which will be MSP, etc. Which means I am assured a profit. But who is I here? All the farmers or the richer, comparatively larger farmers? You get that point? Now tell me this. Will the rich, larger farmers be a net buyer of food or a net seller of food? Net seller? Why? What does this net buyer, net seller mean? Can somebody tell me? Some language, yes. Okay, no, I'm looking for a technical definition that Varian gives you. Something about net buyer and net seller, chapter 31 and chapter 19 also, third edition. Absolutely, that's the word I was looking for, endowment. As a farmer, you are endowed with the crop that you grow. And if you need that crop more than your endowment, then you are a net buyer. And if you need a crop less than your endowment, then you are a net seller. For those of you who are uninitiated, don't worry at all. I'm initiating it for you right now. What I am meaning is, suppose ये हमारे एक फार्मर हैं, ये पता नहीं बचपन से मैं इंसान कॉकरोच की तरह क्यों बनाता हूँ, मैं आज तक नहीं समझ पाया. बट एनीवेज, तो ये हमारे फार्मर हैं और ये जो फार्मर हैं, से इनका ये लैंड है. दिस इज अ लैंड बिलोंगिंग टू दिस पर्सन. नाउ ऑन दिस लैंड, सपोज दिस पर्सन ग्रोज 100 kg. This 100 kg grown on this land will be the endowment or starting point of this farmer. If this farmer demands food higher than 100 kg, then this farmer will become a net buyer of food. If this farmer demands food lesser than 100 kg, for himself of course, then this farmer will be a net seller. So this is the endowment. I can call it, say, WF, endowment of food. And if I say XF as the demand for food, then what I am just trying to claim to you right now is that if WF minus XF is greater than 0, I will be a net seller. I hope you get that. If my endowment of food is higher than my demand for food, I will be a net seller. And similarly, if WF minus XF is less than 0, I will be a net buyer. Now you tell me this, if I am a small farmer, a weaker farmer, what are my chances? Will I be a net seller or a net buyer? Net buyer. But if I am a bigger farmer, chances that I will be a net seller. Now when the government gives me this captive market support, that we will buy whatever you produce extra, what are they doing? They are helping me as a rich buyer, as a rich farmer. But what will that do in the market? If the government assures that I will not let the price fall below, say, 100 rupees, just giving you an example, then that means the market price can remain above 100. What will that do to me, even if I am a producer of food, but a net buyer of food? Will it help me or harm me? Harm me? Well, I am a net buyer of food, right? So if I am a net buyer of food, and you keep the food price high, now ostensibly you are saying I'm supporting the farmer. But what is happening here? What would happen in a pure capitalist system? In a pure capitalist system, markets will dominate. So if there is a bad crop, prices would go high due to less supply. And if there is a bumper crop, prices will go down due to high supply. And because the demand remains pretty inelastic for agricultural products, and that will mean the corrections can be done by the market. In this case, the government said we are not letting the market correct things. So if you have a bad crop, when price is going high, if it is a bad crop, less supply, and the price is going high, then the government says, oh great, nice life for the farmers, price is rising, no need of declaring a high MSP, but the farmers are making more money, but it's hurting the small farmer, the net buyer. On the other hand, if it is a good crop, a bumper crop, where the small farmer can now think, okay, I can make some more money from the market, the government says, hang on, I will not let the price fall. You understand that? So if I don't let the price fall in a bumper crop, and I won't let the price come down in a deficit crop, it's a problem. Now what could be the answer to this? Or what was the policy answer to this? Do I believe, first of all, that till here you are with me? All right, now think. Yes. Sure. I'll tell you. MSP is when you declare a support price, saying that you will not be charging a price lesser than this, or the farmer can sell at this price to the government, whatever amount they want. All right? So that means the farmer is secured that it doesn't go below this price. Procurement price used to be declared by the government at which they will purchase from the market every year. Now I am saying that who will buy? Do you understand the idea of net buyer, net seller? That you understand, which I wrote here and all that? Now I am saying the small farmer is a net buyer of food. The large farmer is a net seller of food. Now the government, through its policy, is not letting the agricultural price come down. You understand that? That if I am a net buyer of food, if there are days when agricultural prices are low, I can get some more food for myself to prepare myself for the days when agricultural prices are high. But in a bad crop, when supply of crop is low and price is already high, just to again tell you this, that suppose if this is the equilibrium and your supply curve shifts to the left, your price rises, that's a bad crop. The government says, all right, some more money for the farmers. On the other hand, in a good crop, when supply is more and price has to fall, then the government can declare an MSP and say we won't let it fall. Now that means the government is not letting the price fall beyond a point. Now what is the policy answer to this? That also we had in our picture. The policy answer was create a public distribution system, which India created in 1965, and distribute food at a cheaper rate through the ration shop to the people. So in that case, you are not letting the farmers lose, you are not letting the price fall, but then you don't let the buyers of food also suffer, because government will supply food at a cheaper rate. You get the whole story? This was the theory given in those days, but now my question to you is, how successful were we in our PDS system till at least 1997? PDS में भी क्या होता था भारत में? अमीर ही जाके वहां से भी ले आते थे. The rich would go and buy it from there also. And that meant effectively that if I am a poor farmer in India, I was hit from both sides. The price will remain high, and my PDS supplies won't come on time, and then it creates issues for me. Now what does that mean? We were practicing a capitalist farming where we were using demand, supply, etc. And we were telling the farmers, all right, we will protect you from low price artificially. So capitalist farming without capitalist institutions. The institutions were socialist and the farming was capitalist. Now, that of course was, and that was the reason that the rich farmers were getting favored. If the institution was capitalist, then things would have been a little different. Why little different? Then the small farmers could have come together, sold their crops in the market, earned some money. That is how capitalist countries had developed. Otherwise, if it was a pure socialist system, then there was no question of a large farmer and small farmer. Land would have been collectivized, and every farmer would be just a tiller on the land, while government will be the appropriator of entire food. अगर प्योर सोशलिज्म होता तो पूरी जमीन सरकार की होती, सारी खेती सरकार की तरफ से हो रही होती, आप उसको ले जाकर कोऑपरेटिव में डालिए, सरकार आप में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेगी. That is what the pure socialist system used to do. That the whole land will be collectivized, will belong to the government, and then you do your tilling on the land, deposit your production to the cooperative, and the government cooperative will distribute it among people. This was not happening in India. The land was not collectivized. So capitalist farming system, profit-oriented approach, but in a socialist system where the government came in after production happened and said, okay, now I am here, I'll protect you, but who is you here? The bigger farmers in the process. I will add more tarka to it, you will get my point. You know what is a problem further in that? A controlled agricultural economy combined with a liberal democracy. So now you have a controlled agricultural economy, and you can do favors to the farmers by declaring high MSP, and you can do favors to the farmer by declaring high, say, procurement price, say the large farmers especially. Now the large farmers will get to know that, and the large farmers have influence in their area, and more money can get them more influence, and now they start giving you a quid pro quo. They say, okay, you keep announcing high price, and we arrange the votes for you. And we also give you political donations to fight the elections. Now it becomes a complete nexus. You know? Because again, unlike socialist economies, in a liberal democracy, the government, in order to survive, has to fight elections and win them. In socialist economies, there was no election. So the institutions were different. So in that case, in a Soviet Union or a China, the government did not have to take a botheration that I must keep some people in the village happy so that they keep the votes on my side. The government could take its own decisions. What I'm trying to teach you here is that institutions have to match the policies you are making. If they don't, if you are trying to make a capitalist agricultural system, then there has to be a capitalist set of institutions like a market, storage facilities, labor charges, a regulator set by the government who would make sure that there is no exploitation of small farmers, etc. All that was not there. What was there was a socialist institution, an APMC market, a public distribution system, government buying directly from the farmers. Now that was the confusing point, and that the beginning part was Green Revolution. Do I believe I reach you on this? Now see, when we talk about, yes, 99.9% of the times. That is why you will see small farmers in most of the villages doubling up as landless agricultural labor. Okay, tell me this. Say you are a small farmer with a family of 6, husband, wife, 4 children. I'm taking it on the lower side. And you have 2 acres of land. The land will never be sufficient to make you a net seller. You understand that? So that is what a small farmer is about. That the land is never sufficient to take care of your family needs. And you will often see, what do small farmers in the village do? Very often they are tenant farmers on the landlord's land also. सिर्फ अपनी जमीन पे थोड़ी खेती करते हैं. जो लैंडलॉर्ड हैं, बड़े किसान हैं जमीन के, उनकी जमीन पे भी जाके करते हैं. In some cases they are also wage workers on the landlord land. In some cases they are porters if there is a nearby construction activity going on. In some cases, many of them migrate to a nearby city, and the wives and the others, say an elder child or someone, takes care of the crop during growing season. And these people come back to their villages only during harvesting and sowing. That is small farmer of India for you. You understand that? So they are net buyers of food. And hence the anomaly that we see. So be careful there that this misplaced structure is what was the trouble part that we saw at times. Do I believe this story is clear to you? APMC, no, rather APMC created, let me teach you APMC. I'm not yet teaching you APMC, but APMC created more intermediaries between government and farmers, if you ask me, by creating sub-bharatiyas and so on. I will teach you the problems further of Green Revolution, Ishan, what could have gone wrong during the current recent phase. Perfect, Niharika. All right. Endowments is the right answer, correct. Fabian socialism may be, Akanksha, that can be a problem part in India initially. The real problem is, again I repeat, the real problem is that when you don't let institute, like why did I bring to you the story of liberal democracy? A liberal democracy in a controlled economy creates the same problem that will happen everywhere. लोगों को समझ में आ जाता है ना, हम इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स बना सकते हैं और इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप बना के इनका डिसीजन इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकते हैं. So people get to understand that. That is why you will see there are very few instances. If there is a liberal democracy, then it's a liberal economy also. Say Western Europe or USA. And if it is a controlled economy, then there is no democracy in those countries, ranging from USSR to China, etc., etc., etc. So that comes together. Please develop yourself. Yes, there can be democratic socialism if the countries evolve properly, the way we see in Scandinavian countries, or what we call stakeholder capitalism. You can call it both things. But that happens with evolution, after you have given good education to your people, after you have made people realize that they are interdependent on each other. So it's at a high level of development that it would happen. But before reaching that, what did Rostov call this stage? Somebody will tell me that. Rostov would call this stage something, the high level of development stage. Okay, I'll tell you just to save time. He would call it the age of maturity. All right, the age of maturity, no, third was takeoff. फिर आता था age of maturity, फिर era of high mass consumption. So age of maturity according to Rostov was the idea कि जब तुम grow कर गए हो इतना कि तुम्हारे पास काफी है, then distribution में issues नहीं आते. Because you are sufficient and people feel secure, and then people know that okay, if we don't redistribute, then in that case that can be more trouble for us because the growth will be punctured. Now every country doesn't learn it. So don't think it's an automatic solution. All right. Many countries, the rich never learn that the poor have to be uplifted. But that discussion I'll do with you when I'm teaching you inclusive growth. The rich are not every time intelligent about the future. Many times the rich can be short-sighted, and they might think, what's lying for me in this? So that can be so institutions are needed to create that. But coming back to my point again, the second point I hope you understand now. I'm just making you write 2-3 lines more on this, on this growth of capitalist farming in Indian agriculture. You write in that, this is second point, you can add to the point further. Green Revolution introduced, this is the second point in criticisms of Green Revolution. Green Revolution introduced market system in Indian agriculture, market system in Indian agriculture by making price mechanism as the method to allocate resources. How do farmers choose to produce even now? Like think. I'm sure you all know the central problems of economy. What to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. Now, how is it solved in Indian agriculture even today? The what to produce thing, still the price, whatever the price is observed by farmer one in the previous season. How to produce, still the cheapness of resources, etc. For whom to produce, again dependent on which commodity can be produced in the most easy way in the economy. So price mechanism is still there in Indian agriculture. for whom to produce, still to some extent government is there, but what to produce and how to produce, you will see it heavily dominated by the price mechanism. But again I repeat, price mechanism rather than planning mechanism to allocate, but government mechanism to distribute. And that was the contradiction at times. So you write that up. Could you help me with the last line that you wrote? As the method of allocation of resources, you wrote that? Yeah. Put a full stop, you write. However, there was interference in the market. There was interference in the market by government, interference in the market by government through APMC system, and fixing of crop price. And fixing of crop price along with procurement by FCI. FCI is Food Corporation of India. Procurement by FCI. FCI is Food Corporation of India. In the same thing you write, therefore, purchase was collective. Purchase of crops की बात कर रहा हूं मैं. Purchase was collective through government channel, but production was individual. Purchase was collective through government channel, but production was individual. The system evolved in such a way, that large farmers as net seller of crop, gained much more than small farmers who were net buyers of crop. Small farmers who were net buyers of crop. I hope we understand that. See, remember, the story that I just told you is the result that endowments will decide net seller, net buyer, and this MSP, etc. story, which decided how large farmers got benefited, small farmers got harmed. Then the third point, if you will see, is it sidetracked the need of institutional reforms. Now, that is true. If you see post-Green Revolution, requirement of institutional reforms like land reforms, institutional reforms like better credit supply to farmers, institutional reforms like helping the farmers in choosing their crops by informing them better, educating the farmer, that is. All these kind of went on the back burner. All right. ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ, उससे प्रोडक्शन बढ़ गया खूब. जब प्रोडक्शन बहुत बढ़ गया तो लोगों को लगा अब कोई चिंता की बात नहीं है. तो जो रिफॉर्म्स रिक्वायर्ड थे संस्थानों में वो नहीं हो रहे थे. आई एम रिपीटिंग माई सेल्फ इन इंग्लिश. एज ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन हैपेंड, प्रोडक्शन बिकेम मोर. With higher production, people thought that all problems are now resolved. So the institutional reforms that we would have needed For example, using local source of irrigation, developing the village culverts, water to be protected from the getting wasted, or developing more research in agricultural system, not only technical research, but even institutional methods, or land reforms in agriculture, or to make sure that farmers get their loans on time, or marketing reforms in agriculture, that okay, farmers can grow different types of crops and all of them can be marketed on time. The need to do all this was not felt. It was thought that, what's the need? We are doing well, now why should we bother? You know, like Virat Kohli's India. So later on, now we see, it's after long that I feel that we are going to a World Cup, and unless you are not a very huge fan and a blind fan, we are not the favorites. You know, अगर तुम बिल्कुल blind fan हो मेरे छोटे बेटे की तरह तो अलग बात है. उनसे अभी भी कोई पूछता है कौन जीतेगा, इंडिया जीत जाएगी. You know? But अगर तुम analytically सोचोगे तो मुश्किल लगता है that we are not the favorites at the moment to this World Cup. Now that is institutional change, understand. Why did we do well? I deliberately brought in cricket here. I have a reason. Why did we do well in cricket? Because post 1983, when we won the Cricket World Cup in 50 overs format, we started building the institutions in cricket. You have a National Cricket Academy devoted to physical and mental training of the cricketers, missing in any other sports. You have BCCI, for all its flaws, a properly governed body still, running itself professionally. You have state cricket boards which are well established. But in other sports, it never happened in India. So in other sports, we see that the champions are in spite of the system rather than because of the system. You know? So once in a while, if somebody comes along like a P. Gopi Chand, he can create some good badminton flurry. But that's not institutionalized. Institutionalization means you keep producing one year after another. You create a system which is normal, it is automatic, it will happen. You don't have to worry. You understand that? Now, in agriculture, similarly, what would have been institutionalization? Freeing the farmers from money lenders. There is one institutional change we had needed. Improving the land holding system in India, reducing the number of Benami transactions, big landlords, and giving the land to the tiller. That's another institution we missed. Training the farmer in right type of crop choice by giving them what is called extension service. Setting up an agricultural research institute and connecting them to village panchayats. That's another institution we missed. So these are the institutional reforms we did not do because we thought we are successful, we are doing good, why go ahead and do more changes? You understand that? So when you talk about banking support, insurance support, research and development support, extension services support, water conservation support, all these are institutions which can do that. Please understand this. All right, so मैं मान सकता हूँ सब लोग institution का मतलब समझते हैं, संस्थान, things which work with an objective. Yes. But that is the centralization problem, that we had NABARD, which will be one institution, but that also happened quite late, around 1980 only. And then RRBs were also there, but RRBs were not only devoted to giving agricultural loans. Plus imagine, in a country with more than 6 lakh villages, 196 RRBs. So there was a lot of gap that we were leaving. And again I repeat, land reform was a big missing link, irrigation reforms were a big missing link, and these things were the institutional change. They needed institutions. Panchayats बाद में नहीं पहले आने चाहिए थे. तो संस्थानों की अपनी इंपॉर्टेंस होती है. All right, that is the aspect. Yes. Okay, I'll give you an option. Say you are a bank. I'm answering a question that government was giving a priority sector lending to farmers. The farmers were maybe not able to absorb it. I'll give you two options. Say you are a bank manager, I'm a rich farmer, or I'm an agricultural business developer. All this will count as agricultural loan, don't forget. You have two options. You either give a loan of 2 lakh rupees to me and meet your target, or there are 100 peasants asking you for 2,000 rupees loan each. Which one is more convenient to you? And what would you do then? No, no, no. You have a security of, not a security of return. You have less workload on your head. Let's be honest. You know, you are choosing the easier way out, which any normal rational individual would. The government was taking no steps. I'll give you some figures today also. I'm a person who believes in numbers and heavily believes. I don't like when I talk without numbers. And to be honest, I don't like people who talk without numbers. So even today, if you would see, even today, there is 40% loan that is in priority sector lending, out of which 18% has to go to agriculture. And out of this 18% in agriculture, out of that, the rule is that 40% should go to small and marginal farmers. Now, you know, even here, what do the banks do? In this 40%, which is 7% of their total loans, they first try clubbing over the farmer self-help groups, the farmer producer organizations, rather than doing the hard work of going from one village to another, doing the survey, choosing the farmer, helping them out, because priority sector lending is not only about giving loan, it's also about helping the farmer in getting extension services, training them how to earn better, and then getting the money back from them. So on paper, we have everything perfect. It's the practice that leaves to be desired. So remember, when it comes to priority sector lending in India, well, and this rule of 40% to small farmers came much later in 2009. Before that, there was no such rule, and that meant that the banks would find it easy. They would choose a big borrower in the rural area, not one, but maybe two or three. They will choose an agribusiness. There also I can give you a number. Out of total loans going to agriculture, 61% loans are still going to agricultural business organizations, not to the farmers directly. I'm quoting to you RBI Financial Stability Report, June 2022. You know, I keep telling you the source of the data so that you can also verify. You will have much affection and love and trust on me after that. You know, so that is the basic aspect. So, you know, when you see this happening, it tells you that still we are choosing the easier way out. But okay, don't give a small farmer much, but take it to the larger farmer. And that is the institution missing, if you ask me. And you know what is the institution we mostly needed? We need microfinance institutions. We need small finance banks in these areas. We needed the rural lending institutions, if allowed, to grow for free. Because usurious, now you would have read this in your booklet also. I'm explaining it to you. This usurious practice means charging a very high interest rate. That is usurious practice. So charging a very high interest rate is normal in villages. What we can do is find a midway. That okay, let's not charge 20% per month interest rate, but we will not force you to charge a 7% per annum also. You understand that? That कोई money lender ही है, छोटे level पे काम करते हैं. Tell them that okay, look, we won't allow you to charge 20% per month. We have made it illegal. We will catch you, put you behind bars, etc. But then we won't force you to take a 7% interest rate. You take something like a 5%, 3%, 2% per month interest rate, and gradually we will make you adjust to the new level. That kind of a thing works much better. But if you say, no, we will establish a bank branch in every village and that will remove the money lender automatically, that automatically did not happen. एक दिन ऐसा हो जाएगा. ये तो सुनते हुए मैं 6 साल से 46 का हो गया. ये important है, मैं आपको कुछ सोच के ये बात कह रहा हूँ. I'm saying this with something in my mind. This is the same story about government school functions in India at times. As a kid, I remember I had asked my grandfather that why are we reserving seats in the private schools for poors if the government schools are already there? Let the government school function well. And I was an 8-year-old at that time, or maybe 9-year-old, and my grandfather had told me that no, it's a temporary thing, since the government schools are not performing very well at the moment due to bad management in the last 2-3 years, so we will improve upon that, and once they are improved, then this reservation will not be needed. But now it is 38, 37 years after that episode. And we still give the same reason to you guys. If you say, why are we reserving seats for in the private school? Why can't we have government schools functioning well? The same reason is given. Oh yes, government school will function well. Till they don't, we are reserving seats. That's not the way to go. That is the trouble part. You know, so there should be method to keep growing, and that's institution actually. Yes, yes. मोटा था बहुत मैं. All right. Let's see this up. Blame it on my grandfather. I grew up with him. Yes, that is, there is more demand for food. So if you can have a ration shop and a PDS, then this net buyer doesn't suffer because the food will be available to this person at a cheaper rate. But the PDS failed in India. So the net buyer was left alone. You see that? Okay. Now, if you see, there is the fourth point. Unfortunately, it is not in the block letters or in a darkened space. It is increased disparity in income. All right? Increased disparity in income. I just want to put a dash there and write, with this increased disparity of income, you write, not only between people, not only between people, but also between regions. Not only between people, but also between regions. You are correct, Saurabh, in your assessment. I'll teach you how to tweak a system. You wait on that, Ishan. Let me teach you Indian agriculture after 91. We will be doing things. WF is the initial endowment, Aman, where you begin. That is WF. Age of maturity is correct. See, that is the point, that if capitalist institutions was there, one of your friends says this, that if capitalist institution was there, it would have left the farmers at the mercy of the market prices without government intervention. So was socialist institution the only answer? Well, if it was, then the government had to take care that PDS functions well. Unfortunately, the socialist institutions were not functioning well, and that became a problem in Indian agriculture overall. You know, so that was the real trouble part. All right. Okay. One of your friends says that thank God you will not be checking our mains answers because we won't get the marks without numbers in there. You know, the bad news is that people who check your mains answers are no different. All right, we are all products of more or less the similar system. But yes, you don't need to write each and every number, but if you're writing Indian economy, you got to corroborate with numbers. You know, otherwise, how do you prove your point? You just can't prove it by saying, I think so. You know, so that cannot be done. That privilege is allowed only for politicians and ideological suitors. You know, ये सुविधा बस उन्हें उपलब्ध है, बाकियों को नहीं. All right, let's see this then. The next problem part there. So why would it do so? मैं बस explain कर रहा हूँ तुम्हें. Among people, I'm sure you understand with the previous discussion that the rich farmers will get more benefits and the poor farmers will get less benefits. Among regions, depended on which region established, better procurement centers. Again, Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh took a heavy lead on this. All right, that procurement centers were established. किसान को कहीं जाकर बेचना है, तो वो जगह बननी पड़ेगी ना. उस जगह का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनना पड़ेगा. अगर वो जगह ही नहीं है तो किसान कहाँ बेचेंगे? अब पूरे बिहार में, मैं 1960-70 की बात कर रहा हूँ, in entire Bihar in 1970s, there were only 3 procurement centers, and in those days Bihar meant Jharkhand included. Now if you have only 3 procurement centers, where will the farmer travel all the way to go and sell? While Punjab and Haryana would have more than 100 centers each. So obviously then it meant that in the regions where the state government had taken the lead and established procurement centers, farmers were much better off with MSP and all that system. And in regions where this was not done, the farmers were quite worse off. I hope I can reach you on that. So both inter-regional inequality and interpersonal inequality. What did I do? Gradually the margin with this point and current point, दोनों point को जोड़ के सुनोगे. The point with respect to capitalist farming and rising inequality. Understand that. Now the marginal farmers and the small farmers gradually started losing control on the capacity that they could have on their land. their production cost was rising, the revenue was not as much, and gradually that meant that the rich farmers started taking over their land also by purchasing it from them, or gradually taking it away from them. They would take loans, will be unable to pay back, and that will mean that they would then have to surrender the land to the rich farmer, and all that further increased inequality of assets. Do I believe you understand this? Again, why blame Green Revolution for it? Because the money to buy them came to the rich farmer with the Green Revolution. So the rich farmer and the poor farmer, the difference started rising with Green Revolution playing a big role over there. Then there is the next point, problems of individual displacements. Now, this was mainly because mechanization of agriculture happened. This individual displacement, in a bracket you can write, rise in unemployment in some areas. In a bracket you can write that, rise in unemployment in some areas. Rise in unemployment in some areas. So when we say rise in unemployment in some areas, this was due to displacement due to tractors. Displacement means workers hat gaye, hata diya, removal of workers. So this displacement was done by machines, that the machines would come in, tractors, threshers. So displacement, in fact I've given you the numbers there. Arjan Singh and Billings, if you see that in the 5th point itself, and it is BY by, not BUY by. Please correct for the mistake there. Paper by economists. I hope you have got that. The paper by economists like Arjan Singh and Billings attempted to quantify labor displacement, and it was done in Punjab, where they found that 55% people were displaced by tractors and 37% by threshers. And they said that between 69 and 81, more than 2 lakh workers were displaced. So they said that that was the negative impact of Green Revolution. There is one more negative impact of Green Revolution. I am making you write that. You please write below this point. One more negative impact of Green Revolution. 6th point. You write, it promoted cultivation. It promoted cultivation by intensive means like very high use of chemical fertilizers, and very high requirement of water which led to environmental degradation and loss of natural capital. This is observed in case of early Green Revolution regions, like Punjab and Haryana with sharp fall in water table, sharp fall in water table, comma, erosion of topsoil, erosion of topsoil, and increase in salinity of soil, in salinity of soil. All right, so this is another wrong impact of Green Revolution that we have seen. I'm keeping the story till here today. I had to give you an answer to a question. I'm going to that. मैं वही ढूंढ रहा था, इसीलिए फोन उठा के देख रहा था. आप बिल्कुल चिंता मत करना, मैं मल्टीटास्किंग नहीं करता हूँ, you know. But अभी मैं बस वो questions ढूंढ रहा था जो मैंने आपको दिए थे, to get the exact language. So the answer I am giving to you today is, of the first question, analyze how industrial development was better in first 3 5-year plans than the next 15 years. All right, analyze how industrial. I'm writing the question on the board so that you can have some good understanding. Perfect, correct, Srishti, you are right. Why? Yes, yes, it can lead to it. That is salination actually. All right, so I'm just writing the answer, the question for you. The question is, analyze how, because I want to discuss how you could have approached this question, and I'll give you a quick write-up on that. And 150 words is what we will keep it at. So the question is, analyze how industrial development was better in first 3 5-year plans as compared to or than the next 15 years. Now, you know, in this question, I was not asking you necessarily the trends in this time period. First thing I want to clarify is that I was not asking you the trends in this time period. We would not need that. No, I will teach you what the 5th point says more clearly tomorrow, Akanksha, when I'm teaching you Evergreen Revolution. The problem is not in technology, the problem is in bad use of technology. All right, so when we come to this point or this question, when they say how industrial development was better, now see, first of all, mentally think your answer, how will you put it in 150 words. So okay, there is a basic structure that 10-15 words can be the introduction, and 10-15 words can be my conclusion, and major 120 words should be my content. Now how to develop that content, what to do about across that content. So content development is this. First of all, pick up points mentally that you will write in this, because what is the question? How was 51 to 66 industrialization better than 66 to 80? In a very simplified language, that is what the question is asking you. That how was the industrialization in 51 to 66 better than industrialization in 66 to 80? So your answer focus should be on that. Create 5-6 points mentally to show how the benefit was better in 51 to 66 than 66 to 80. A wrong way to answer, wrong is maybe a wrong word, but I'll choose my word carefully. Maybe a not so perfect way to answer will be, if you tell the examiner this was the growth rate of capital goods, consumer goods, etc. in 51 to 66, this was the growth rate in 66 to 80, now you choose on your own. You know, एक ये तरीका देखा मैंने बहुत आप में से लोगों ने किया है, उससे बचना. All right, क्योंकि तुम ये नहीं कर सकते. Then, okay, this is what I know about 51 to 66. This is what I know about 66 to 80. Now please take your choice. That is the question that is being asked. That what exactly was the difference? So now, 51 to 66, the development was based on infusing more capital in India. I'll make you write this, but understand the point. So infusing more capital goods, good industry in India, developing production capacity in India. But in 66 to 80, we saw that capital goods industry was not growing. Here, if you remember the data, you can write it. If you don't remember the data, I'll tell you the trick. In this case, you write, capital goods industries were growing in double digits, increasing capacity to produce at a faster rate in the first 3 5-year plans, while the same growth rate came below 4% per annum in the next 15 years. Now, you don't have to remember hard data, like 17% growth rate and all, but you will very well remember, will write something where the data is coming in. Do I reach you on that? So that is the way you should try planning your answers. So one point is about compare the capital goods industry and say this was one factor. Second was, in the first 3 5-year plans, growth was also based on some demand in the market. There was a demand for industrial diversification. There was a demand for growth of capital goods. In the second stage, 66 to 80, that demand was not there as yet. Similarly, in the first phase, so the third point can be, in the first phase, the negative impact of licensing or negative impact of public sector reservation was not felt. Rather, they were creating a positive impact of making more coordinated approach to development. But in the second phase, the negative impact of the licensing, the negative impact of public sector reforms, or public sector in reservation were felt, and they were making a negative impact on growth. Similarly, you can talk about first phase when infrastructure development was the key priority, and a lot of investment was done on infrastructure, which supported industrialization as it made supply side contributions. If you create good infrastructure, you create capacity to supply. But the same devotion on creating quality infrastructure was not there till at least 1975-76. So you see, so you are picking up your points from what had happened in that time period, making a comparison of how one time period could be better or worse than the other. In the same thing, you can also end up writing that, however, in the first phase, it was noticed that consumer goods were in shortage due to lack of capacity to supply, but in second stage, consumer goods were relatively higher in number. All right, that is the other point you can write. Then bring the fifth, I hope you are with me. Then bring the fifth point. कभी-कभी ना आप मुझे इतने गौर से देखते हो, मुझे लगता है हाँ, या तो तुम सो रहे हो या मैं ही सो रहा हूँ. नहीं, ठीक है, good. If you're listening to me, this is the next point. The fifth point you will highlight in the second stage, because see, the question is analyze how. All right. So then you can write in the second phase, 66 to 80, government was making rules to restrict investment like MRTP or FERA, but in the first stage, these rules were not there. So the first stage investment was more profound as compared to what it was in the second stage. And then giving these points, writing 20-25 words on each, it gives you your 125 words real body, and then you can conclude by saying that therefore, in the second stage, India experienced 2 recessions, and the period is known as structural retrogression, especially in the context of industrialization in India. Do I believe you understand how you could have approached it? All right, I'll give you more practice, but let's write this down then. You write, the first 3 5-year plans, the first 3 5-year plans experienced higher industrial growth compared to the next 15 years. In terms of in terms of both quantity and quality. Both quantity and quality. The differences were and you can keep putting bullet points, you can write A, B, C, D, you can write 1, 2, 3, 4, you can write in paragraph. They don't deduct marks by any of these. It's the content which matters. Alright. Plus, regarding handwriting, it should be legible. If it is legible, it's all good. There is no fun in having a wonderful handwriting and then you write incorrect in a wonderful handwriting. You know, so your handwriting should be legible. The examiner should be able to read it easily. Just don't make it illegible. नहीं तो वो cut कर देंगे. But you don't have to make your handwriting great and in the process lose your speed. That also should not happen. Then you write in the same thing, put the first point, so point A kind of. Capital goods industry increased at a faster rate in a bracket you write in double digits close the bracket in initial period compared to less than 4% per annum growth, less than, keep writing PA for per annum, less than 4% per annum growth in the next period. This showed slower growth. Of production capacity. Slower growth of production capacity. Full stop. Then the second point. Infrastructure development was relatively faster and more pronounced with high allocations in each 5-year plan. Compared to less coordinated approach which was observed in the next time period. Then you write third. Industrial diversification was higher with growth recorded in consumer goods, capital goods, and intermediate goods industry and intermediate goods industry at relatively faster pace. However, in the next time period, except consumer goods, comma, growth rate significantly slowed down in other two industries. Then you write another one. Positive impact of public sector reservation and licensing was observed initially, but these policies led to delays, comma, nepotism and rent seeking. I'm sure you recall, rent seeking is bribery. Rent seeking in the next time period. And then one more point you write. Restrictive rules like MRTP, and FERA, FERA, discouraged investment comma, combined with overprotectionism and complex tax procedure. Full stop. These detriments, 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 रुकावटों को कहते हैं. These detriments, DETRIMENTS, these detriments were not available, were not available in the initial period. Change the paragraph. Now I am giving you the conclusion. Therefore, the period between 1966 to 1980 is called period of structural retrogression structural retrogression where the basic structure of cost efficiency, comma, technical upgradation and qualitative production declined for Indian industries. Remember one thing, when I give you these answers, they are just model answers, but they are not written in stone. Alright, gradually as you learn more about Indian economy, you can create your own answers. मैं बस तुम्हें एक model form दे रहा हूँ सिखाने के लिए. Alright, that doesn't mean this can be the only answer. Alright, okay then, I'll see you tomorrow 2:50. Thank you. Have a great day. नहीं, this just came along. Economic literature, nothing. नहीं, ये structural retrogression term इकोनॉमिक्स लिटरेचर में मिलेगा तुम्हें, किताबों में नहीं मिलेगा. वही कह रहा हूं, लेकिन इकोनॉमिक लिटरेचर जो जर्नल्स वगैरह छपने लगे ना, उसमें ये टर्म आता था. क्योंकि दोनों चीजें हो रही थी. ओवरऑल तो लॉस था. हाँ, मैं 1 सेकेंड लूंगा बस. डिस्पैरिटी मीन्स इनइक्वालिटी, कृष्णा. Anusha, I hope you got the point. Mahalanobis model you can mention, Srishti, okay. Can't explain to you the reasons of the point in that write-up, Srishti. You can use FYP, not a problem. Yes, yes. हाँ, लेकिन फिर टेक्स्ट पढ़ने से अच्छा वो किताबें पढ़ो जो तुम्हारा नॉलेज बेस और इन्हांस कर सके. जैसे इंडियन इकोनॉमी की बुक्स पढ़ो, ठीक है, जो लोगों ने लिखी हैं. बट अगर टेक्स्ट ही पढ़ोगे तो फिर डुप्लीकेशंस होंगी बहुत जगह. मतलब वही चीजें तो पढ़ ही रहे हो ऑलरेडी. चाहो तो पढ़ सकते हो, मुझे उससे कोई डिपेंड्स ऑन कितना टाइम है, कितना टाइम स्पेयर कर सकते. हाँ, जिनके पास ज्यादा जमीन होगी वो ज्यादा फर्टिलाइजर खरीदेंगे तो ज्यादा सब्सिडी मिलेगी, क्योंकि पर प्राइस सब्सिडी है ना. अगर मैं 100 kg फर्टिलाइजर खरीदूंगा और कोई 10 kg खरीदेंगे, तो जो 100 kg खरीदेंगे उनको ज्यादा बेनिफिट अपने आप है ना. वो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन हर पर केजी सब्सिडी है. जैसे मान लो सब्सिडी है 10 रुपया पर केजी, तो जो 100 kg खरीदेगा मार्केट से उसको 1000 रुपए की सब्सिडी मिली, और जो 10 kg खरीदेगा उसको 100 रुपए की सब्सिडी मिली. हाँ, इनडायरेक्टली सब्सिडी है ना. डायरेक्ट सब्सिडी अभी दे कहाँ रहे हैं पूरी तरह. ठीक है. But we have no proof of that happening.
At the same time, in the GDP analysis, we saw that the industrial good industries were increasing like 90.
But that's what I'm saying, that there's no proof that it put a burden on Indian industries. Rather, it gave more demand for Indian industries. All right, that is my suggestion. I'll just take a second. Don't say only rich farmers, Amir Beer. You can say mostly rich farmers. Scholars like Ashok Gulati, contemporary scholars Praful, or Ramesh Chand. Yes, low base could be one factor, but rising benefits was also a factor, Rashmi. Net seller are people who need less than what they produce. Net seller are buyers are people who need less than what they say more than what they produce. If you are producing 10 units and you need 40 units, then you will be a net buyer. And if you are producing 10 units and you need 5 units, then you are a net seller. All right, that is the aspect. Dualism means two extreme types of the things. For example, very skilled people with very unskilled people. So what happens is very skilled people do not get absorbed in agriculture. There is no scope, and very unskilled people cannot contribute, and that leads to underdevelopment. I'll teach you FERA, but FERA, the idea was that it said that foreign investors can't bring their money to India. Indian exporters were bound from taking money out. So it was about discouraging investments in Indian industry then, because it was restricting growth of Indian industry. लेकिन ये पढ़ाऊंगा तुम्हें, फिर I'll teach you. Savings में. देगी नहीं उस्ताद, जरूरत ही नहीं है. ठीक है. I'll just take 1 second. We will discuss farm laws, Anuj. If they could have been implemented well, we could have got some. But farm laws we will discuss in India after 1991. Yes, you can quote the name of economists or researchers. It does help you in getting some marks, Akanksha. नहीं, अगर तुम जीएस में लिखते हो तो तुम इतने डिटेल में नहीं जाते इन चीज़ों में. अगर तुम जीएस में लिखते हो तो तुम मेनली जो स्ट्रक्चरल रिट्रोग्रेशंस के कारण थे ना, वो हाईलाइट करते रहते. जरूरत ही नहीं थी इसमें, यहाँ जरूरत नहीं थी. दिस कंप्लीटली फाइन. मतलब हमें उसे कॉम्प्लिकेट करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं. एक्चुअली होता क्या है कि हम लोग इकोनॉमिक्स इतनी पढ़ते हैं ना कि यही हमारा लैंग्वेज लग हो जाता है, तो हमें लगता है ये जनरल है. ठीक है, जबकि जो लैंग्वेज तुम यूज कर रहे हो ना, इसमें जितने टर्म्स हैं, इसमें बहुत सारे टर्म्स तुम देखोगे कि हमारे लिए नॉर्मल है. समझ रहे हो मेरी बात? तो ये हाँ, और जीएस का क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन कम हो गई थी, ये लिख सकते हो. बिल्कुल, यू कैन राइट क्रॉप डाइवर्सिफिकेशन. Endowment means your initial production. All right? Endowment means your initial production, Manasvi. MSP is only when the farmer is in distress. Procurement price will be announced every year. Integrated farming means cropping combined with poultry, with dairying, everything is integrated. Export situations improved in India after 1980s, Vigneshwaran, post-Green Revolution, but after 1980s. But that is now. I'll teach you PDS, but the major change was TPDS after 1997, the targeted PDS. Another was Aadhaar linked distribution, and then the UPI linked. So then today the reach is much better than what it used to be in the past. It's expected. It's expected. Sellers बन जाते हैं, तो ये नेट बायर्स हैं. बिल्कुल. नहीं, ऐसा कुछ भी रूल नहीं है. नहीं, anybody can sell any amount. बिल्कुल. बस नोट्स पढ़ो अभी कृष्णा, और कुछ मत करो. नोट्स पढ़ो और क्लास डिस्कशंस देखो. लैंड टेन्योर सिस्टम इज द वे लैंड इज हेल्ड, आदित्य. So all right, people who are online, I'll see you tomorrow 2:50 then. Thank you.